My name is Ruth Percey. I work here at the Oshkosh Public Library. I'm also part of the Oshkosh Area Writers Club and some other things related to writing that I get into trouble with. This event is hosted by the Oshkosh Area Writers Club. We meet on the first and third Saturday of each month here at the library. There are some brochures on the snack table, and you're welcome to take one. A membership is free and open to anybody that is 17 and older. So that's my plug for the Writers Club, who is sponsoring this, and I see some people here that are members, so thank you for coming. So this is our open mic night tonight, and it's just a chance to, for some of us, we just got done with a series of 5 different writing classes that started at the end of September. So some people that were in those writing classes are here tonight that are going to share what they wrote. We did haiku, memoir writing, drabbles, and stories and writing prompts. So some of the stuff tonight will be stuff that we've written in the last couple 5 weeks or so that we've been doing meeting for these writing classes, and then some of it is just going to be stuff people just have lying around the house, because we all have stuff lying around the house that we wrote, right? This is Cassidy. She's new to Oshkosh. She just moved here a couple months ago, and she was one of our participants in our writing workshops this fall. So please give a warm welcome to Cassidy.
Hello. Hi. So I wrote a book. It's more of a kid's book than an adult book. It's called The Life and Times of Before the Cat. And I'm reading it to you like a little kid, so story time!
I couldn't remember this story.
Okay, thanks.
Why don't you sit down?
Yeah, alright. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Is this too close to the mic?
I think we need to be a little closer.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good.
Good. All right. Life and Times of For the Cat. Gotta find the page here. The next page. Woo. Hello. My name is Ford. Now you might be wondering why I'm named that. As a teeny tiny kitten, I had to get rescued from the engine of a Ford truck. It was a day-long job for a couple of Humane Society workers and mechanics. Here's my story. This is Boo Boo, my big sister. She can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but she can be a good sister. This is me in a tuna coma, as my human mom Stacy calls it. You see, she took me to the vet to get me some shots, and boy was I mad about it. Then when we got back home, Stacy gave me some gave me a can of chicken of the sea tuna. Yum, that my favorite. To say that she's sorry. I forgave her, though. Read Ford's mind. Read Ford's mind. Woo, 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 woo. This is my favorite chair. Keep off. This is a Cats reference, Cats musical reference. I like to lie in a bureau drawer while I make a big fuss and can't get it out. Dun, dun, dun. "50 Shades of Grey" is my favorite book. I enjoy watching the Green Bay Packers. Go, Pack, go! I love Cheez-Its. love lasagna. He's like Garfield. I swear he's like Garfield. Game day snack time. Mmm, yummy in my tummy. And I also love raspberry ice cream. My favorite hiding spot. Boo Boo and I are enjoying the game together. One last cage fight with Boo Boo and then it's game time. My own bubbler. My baseball viewing position. See? He's upside down watching baseball. He's actually watching the birds. Nap time. Good night. Oh. The end.
Thank you, Cassidy.
You're welcome.
We did have a series of writing workshops this year, this fall, and one of them was writing haiku. So I just wanted to read a couple haiku, and then I'm going to share with you the one that I wrote. I'm sorry, not haiku, 6-word memoirs. 6-word memoirs, if you're not familiar with them, are exactly what they are. It's like telling your life story in just 6 words. They can be funny, sad, nonsensical. So I'm just going to read a couple of them that I thought were kind of pertinent for tonight. I think these are written by famous, it says written by writers famous and obscure. So I guess that means famous writers and people like us. So anyways, this either obscure or famous person, Angie Stahl, wrote, last chapter hasn't been written yet. Wanted fewer husbands and more children. Everyone is familiar with Yogi Berra's one. It ain't over till it's over. His grandson wrote one that said, Grandpa's a tough act to follow. This one I just didn't get, but I thought it was funny. I feel like a jelly bean. And then my last one was, Earth was definitely my second choice. So that's the idea of what a 6-word memoir is. We went through an hour-long process in coming up with ours, and mine ended up being, when the door closed, used window. So next reader's going to be Tom Cannon. Tom has written a book called The Tao of Apathy. If I can get a copy here, it's available on Amazon. It's humorous, it's funny.
Also in the library?
Oh, it's also available in the library. But it is quite, I would say, satirical take on the workings of staff at a hospital. And it's quite, like I said, it is funny, but it's got a message. So, anyways, on sale now. And Tom, I'll let you just take it away.
Good to meet you. Ruth and I are about the same height, to make sure that we're looking at.
Oh, yeah, you're not even in there. Oh, dear.
Okay, so I thought I would just read a scene from The Tao of Apathy. And so in this one, it's a scene between 2 kitchen workers. They work at a hospital. One is Joe. Joe's a lifer, and he's going to be there forever. Bigger's somewhat younger. He has lots of dreams of being success. Now he's having a conflict with their boss, Mr. Seuss, okay? Because he refuses to wear the uniform. Now Bigger's name, I just wanted to mention, comes from the main character in Richard White's Native Son. I don't want to compare this white guy's plight to the hardship of a black man in Chicago in the 1930s, but I did want to touch on the hopelessness of class distinction. Anyway, this is a comedy. That comes across. So Joe knew everything that went on at St. Jude's. The education department sent bulletins, memos, and newsletters to every employee on a regular basis. Joe rarely read these communications and never believed them, which was the first way he kept on top of things. Joe knew the hospital from top to bottom because he got reports from Bigger, as Bigger delivered the food cards, and because he helped out in the cafeteria during the lunch rush and listened to the staff gossip as they waited for the tuna casserole. Most importantly, Joe was a heavy smoker. He spent every moment he could sneak in a small building provided for the cancer enthusiasts. The room with its stained yellow walls and stench was an oasis for every smoker of every department. Because it was not possible to get to the room from the inside the hospital, the smokers hurried through the rain, snow, and freezing temperatures with a coat and a lighter to get to their carcinogen clubhouse. Joe hated, feared, and coveted his fellow smokers, and he looked forward to staining them every day. While Joe smoked, he studied human nature, and he decided that everyone's desire boiled down to two goals: to be happy and to have sex. Joe believed these goals were not usually interchangeable. For the conversations that went on in these small room, what we call the butthead, he discovered the mistakes that each person made that kept him far from these goals. People lost touch with their loved ones, but they bared their souls during the breaks to a coworker they might not even particularly like. They compared the light camaraderie with their coworkers with the real difficult relationships they had in their homes, while failing to see how jerky they actually were to their family. Sex was an easier goal as long as you kept your standards low. Once the people achieved this goal, they often tried to turn it into happiness. They told themselves they'd be happy if only they added a stable relationship and a family to their sex. Then once they had that happiness, they weren't happy with happiness, and then they went on looking for new sex. Joe smoked and sat and noticed that people had a profound effect on each other and didn't notice. A friendly smile did make a person's day, and a thoughtless comment had the ability to break down a relationship permanently. A supervisor's small, thoughtless comment caused a day of grumbling and a lifetime of resentment. Everyone was caught up in his or her own problems and ready to find fault with everybody else. Joe did not pretend to be any different. Sometimes, every day, Joe cracked up criticism at anyone that chipped him off. Nurses or dietitians were often rude to him on the phone, and he would take it out on them during those smoke breaks. He figured the chances of anyone filling out a complaint form while I was out in the butthead were slim. But because Joe knew the workings of St. Jude's, he knew better than to make a comment anywhere else. In a dispute between a professional staff member in a kitchen or a housekeeper or a maintenance person, the kitchen or the housekeeping or the maintenance person was in the wrong. It was assumed by many, including some of those people, that they were not intelligent enough to be on the right. It was assumed by many of those same people that they were not intelligent. Many even thought these low-level personnel had a mental ailment and made them act up. A professional was to act professional, not to act professional, but to be treated professionally. Those on the low end of the pay scale were not people but equipment. And equipment was to be seen and used, but don't try to attach feelings to them. Now, Bigger often went with Joe to the butthead. He didn't smoke, but he liked to gripe. That friggin' Seuss, he said as he dropped his feet on one of the two long tables that ran down the middle of the room. Ashes shot up from the table and walked it towards Joe. He wanted to get rid of my pants and my shoes and anything else he wanted to approve of. He wants you naked from the waist down? Where did I sign up for that? Yeah, he wants Mr. Stiffy to wave to people as I push the carts. Bigger was so sarcastic that Joe felt proud to know him. But his sarcasm made Bigger uncomfortable. Always ready to go toe-to-toe, Bigger hated confrontations. Or rather, his reluctance to get in confrontations bottled up his feelings until he was so frustrated and angry that he wanted to fight someone. No, he wants me to wear white pants, a white shirt, and white shoes. Wow, Bigger, that is our uniform. If you haven't noticed, all my work clothes are white, Joe said, pointing to the clothes that were all white, except for food and coffee and sweat and hair stains. But why? I don't see why. I do my job. I do it well. I used to wear all white, remember? I felt like a sperm. It made my legs look short. I didn't even feel human. Plus, I think that the right colored pants help to protect me from the invisibility rays. Ah, here we go. There are invisibility rays in the hallways, Joe. He was talking loudly so others could hear, but no one took note. And they only work on me. I bring up a food cart and no one says anything to me. I don't hear a good morning or a thank you. All I hear is, oh, look, the food cart is here. Why are they surprised unless they don't see that it's me that brought it up? If I stand and wait to see if the nurses are done collecting the dirty dishes so I can take the cart, they don't see me again. They never say, oh, okay. Why? You can take the cart or we'll be ready in a minute. Why don't they say something if they see me standing there? Bigger. Joe, it's true. Sometimes I take a cart and someone says, why is that cart leaving so early? If I weren't invisible, they would know why. Because I'm taking it. and the elevator. Everyone's getting in my way and they don't let me out, even though I have this huge cart. I hate it when you talk like this. There are no invisibility rates, and there's no reason for Seuss to make you conform to the dress code. It's just the way things are. Well, Seuss told me that I better be in an all-white suit or I'll be suspended. He also had the people who caused problems when we let go and some major changes going on in the hospital. Figure stood up, seeing that Joe was finished with his Marlboro. Joe raised his eyebrows. Why? What did he say? He said, we're going to reorganize this place so we don't need degenerates in green pants. Well, pretty good hint. Joe opened the door and they walked against a small wind the short way to the entrance near the kitchen.
Thank you, Tom. And again, the book is titled Tao of Apathy. Now, and after that plug, I'm going to now introduce Allie, who is one of our right now writing participants. So come on up, Allie.
Hi. So the piece that I'm going to read for you today is titled Birdcage. She looked so lost and certainly out of place in the cold blue plastic world that was a city bus. I'm sure it didn't help that people were staring, myself included. Honestly, though, I couldn't help feeling a warmth for the woman, not only for her confusion at the situation she found herself in, but because she was so different from the people that I usually came across. She wore an orange dress that was vaguely Victorian. The dress was trimmed in beautiful black lace and stopped at her calves, barely grazing her ankles. Her yellow blonde hair hung down to her shoulders and sort of reflected the sunlight as the bus rolled and bumped down street after street. And her eyes. I don't think I've ever seen eyes that blue. She carried with her a birdcage. It was metal, wrought iron by the look of it. The black bars curved intricately and looped back around themselves. Small gemstones winked up from various sections of the cage. Some a bright, cheerful magenta, a few others a deep navy blue, and still others a fresh yellow-green that I recognized as a stone called peridot. Someone gave a loud cough, and I realized that I'd been staring at her in her birdcage for most of our journey. We caught eyes, and she smiled. I could feel the color rise in my cheeks, and I looked away. From my left came the static buzzing of a whisper. It was one of the school children we had picked up, speaking to her friend and staring at the woman out of her peripheral. Her friend laughed, and I felt a sharp bite of anger in my stomach. Why? Why laugh and make fun of something that's different or something we don't understand? The two girls continued to whisper and stare. There was an unpleasant sensation creeping around my insides. Guilt. Was I really any better than the two girls? True enough, I wasn't laughing, but I had stared too. I sighed and waited for the bus to stop at the red light in front of us and moved across the aisle in front of her. She looked surprised and politely curious. Hi, I said. I'm Al. She smiled and shifted the birdcage onto the seat next to her to shake my hand. Hello, Miss Allie. My name is Rachel.
Thank you very much for that, Allie. Next up is Linda, who's she's written a lot of, well, if we break it down into 30,000 word books, she's kind of sitting on a series of 12 or 14 books right now. Very well written. Anyways, Linda, I'm going to turn the mic over to you now.
I am going to be begin with something a little bit more light, possibly regressing. This is entitled Skinny Dipping. Downy clouds suspended in a stunning blue sky, choreographed by an unseen force, with beams of light displayed or shielded by nature's whim. A balmy breeze offers respite from the heat of the sun, conveying with it the alluring scent of budding foliage and the fecund ground in which it grows. Trees and bushes present a haven for alien guests, winging their way to places unknown, singing, calling out the joy of life and plentiful victuals found, casting sun-drenched gems upon my exposed skin, forgetting the encumbrances of mankind, drifting on the fluid surface and feeling exceptionally fine. Come on. The next, Algoma Avenue Cemetery. Walking in a cemetery on a warmish fall day, colors of the season displayed proudly against a blue sky. Discarded leaves spiraling down with the gentle breeze, rustling underfoot as I wander paths, man-made and not. Eyes observant in order to inspire my inner muse, honoring the past with camera in hand. Walking in a cemetery on a warmish fall day, mausoleums with carved flourishes, intricate metal grills, flanked by trees, shrubs, or planted stone, aged or recent, statuary, humble, winged wrapped, comforting, arms aloft, a bench to sit and reflect the passing of time, honoring the past with camera in hand. Walking in a cemetery on a warmish fall day, studying the worn tombstones of a man and his two wives, lying between sisters who shared his bed one at a time. Family plots, children's cemetery, GAR, reinterred nuns, most with dreams for the future, theirs or another's, honoring the past with camera in hand. Walking in a cemetery on a warmish fall day, scanning the landscape, this quiet necropolis of the dead, the Fox River flowing easterly in the near background, understanding others' responses, yet seeing the beauty, extending a fond farewell until my ensuing visit, honoring the past with camera in hand. Now, this is from our Story Starters session of the 13th. It's called Crossing the Bridge. Life is long, yet travels so fast. Sweet and sour, clean and sticky, sometimes gross. Love's not always fleeting, sometimes wears on the soul. Experience makes us who we are, gives us opportunity to change or stagnate. Cycles move like the seasons of a year. I say farewell in the winter of my life without regrets before crossing the bridge. And the last, also from one of our sessions, the memoir in 6 words. Seeking a mother who accepts me.
Thank you very much, Linda. Next up is a local artist named Tom Butt. I might have seen some of his work downtown during the gallery walks. I don't even know what to say about your poetry. It's crazy, man. Come on up. Share it.
It's fun and adventuresome to write your own poetry. It's great to read great poetry. But I think one of the most poetic things you can do is to actually take a poem and put it in your soul, memorize it, so it becomes part of your DNA. Now that's poetry. So, here's one I like. 'Twas brilliant the sliding toes did gyre and gimble through the wall. All mimsy were the borogoves and the bombs all crop. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jujubur, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the Maxim foe he sought. So rested he by a tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in Uffy's thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the towdy wood, and purpled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade would snicker snack. He lifted down, and with its head, he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O Fragiste Kalu Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas Brilligan the slimy toes, the Jara giggled in the wall. O Mimsy were the Boromos, and the Monrods outcrop. That's Ruth Percey. And it's interesting that the interesting little footnote to this poem that Lewis Carroll was investigated by Scotland Yard for the Jack the Ripper slayings. Particularly the part they went snicker snack, he lifted dead, so he was exonerated. So here's a poem called Obamathon. No, Obamathon, yeah. No, Autobathon, that's it. I got Obama on my mind. Okay, it happened overnight. The worldwide avian flu morphed into complete and total change forever. That morning, everyone human woke up with the head of a bird. Pop culture, which called it the Goonie years, said it endured for multiple decades. Historians refer to the big shift as the great berufflement. As history goes and goes, everything at last settled down to rote routine and lawful order. Everyone played to type as if Esau had done the genetic engineering. Owls became judges, authors, and academics. Academics with a keen instinct for mice, catching mice in split infinitives. Hawks and eagles became the cops, soldiers, hedge fund managers, and all-night optometrists. Flamingos, peacocks, and crested ducks filled the worlds of entertainment. Parrots with preternatural aplomb ministered the spheres of religion. Crows and vultures, lawyers and paralegals with talents. Ostriches, politicians, woodpeckers, hard hats, hummingbirds, brain surgeons. But with the birdcage of the planet, most of mankind were plain brown sparrows. Humble, hardworking, obedient, and anti-ostentatious. Their only peculiarity was to gather in small groups to Twitter, and to Twitter, and to Twitter more through the misty twilight. Oh, okay. This is a Beatle poem. I just said, well, just think of a bunch of Beatle lyrics and see if they kind of organically I hear, you know. And that's when I think Beatle turns out, it does all you hear, every poem, every song they do. So this is called 3 Yards for the Boob. Lucy in the sky plucked a diamond and tossed it down to the current fool on the hill, which by the luck of Our Lady of Madonna was me, the one and only. Slipping it under my taxman's sleeve, I descended into a strawberry field, turned to yesterday's jam, and waded to a recommissioned yellow submarine. Amidst everyone, I made it to the all-you-need-is-love torpedo room. Quickly unloaded my LSD for some most Mother Superior Norwegian wood. Across the universe, we hopped the scotch till the beautiful people got piggy bland. It was just another day in the life of not me, not you, but certainly it was for the Eggman, holding hands with an apostolating Prince Albert, going cuckoo, ka-choo, into the magical, mysterious meaning mood. I don't know if I should do another.
Go for it, yeah.
This is called Fear of Gossamer. Born of plutonium parents, Dada, Dago, and Mama Gama, with four arms, 4 legs, lustrous black saucer-sized eyes, a voluminous bottom, Spider Girl, Chris and Carla, grew up in a home radiant of accelerated atomic decay and care. Eschewing the superheroine gig, Carla knitted a non-stop stream of silk ties, scarves, top hats, and avant-garde kimonos. Then the anti-arachne virus hit, and Carla went dry and empty. Her parents' death followed. Carla's money-making gifts gone, Spider-Girl had to hit the cobblestones in search of work. Nothing lasted. And with a he-man's opioid Jones, took up a career of major crime. After multitude homicides, Carla was formidable, wielding a gun and axe, a mace, and a Louisville slugger. Spider-Girl was caught and given a lifer at Muffet Prison. A year into it, Carla was found dead, hanging by a silken rope. A bald spot on her scalp revealed the source of Spider-Girl's tightly woven strands. Trumpty Dumpty sat on his wall. Trumpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the Don's horses on all his golf courses couldn't put Trumpty together again. Amen.
Lord. You need a sense of humor to survive this election cycle. Next up is a gentleman named Bill, who's a member of the Oshkosh Area Writers Club for about 8 or 10 years now. It's been a while.
Better part of the decade.
Do you want the chair, or?
I'll try the podium first, I guess.
Okay.
And let's see how it goes.
And do you want to talk into the microphone if you can?
Yes. Although Fred Leist also did tell me how to overpronounce it so I could be heard more easily. Okay. A Vietnam War project, and this is basically, okay, here are the intellectual threads that I'm working with to help us understand that. So first off, 2 things. One, we had the wall, the memorial wall, left it here just yesterday, And so I lead off with, American Colonel said this conversation in Hanoi, April of 45, that's the month that South Vietnam fell. You never defeated us on the battlefield, American Colonel. North Vietnamese Colonel pondered it, then said, that may be so, but it is also irrelevant. 58,000 people dead, and our efforts apparently were irrelevant. Triple insult. So, at any rate, how we got into it, at the time, we were facing, well, how did we get into it? First of all, it had to do with post-World War II, the phenomenal successes of the communists within even the, let's say, a decade after World War II. They first of all, Soviet Russia had smashed Germany and given a killing blow to Imperial Japan. Then the Soviet Union had grabbed, in the first couple of years after World War II, 6 countries in Eastern Europe, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Romania. Then they had grabbed, in 49, China fell. North Korea tried to take over South Korea in 1950, 3-year bitter war. And the communists were fighting very effectively against the French colonialists in Indochina, like Vietnam. They were called the Viet Minh at the time. And so President Eisenhower had this idea about, we had, with tremendous national effort, we had forestalled communist takeovers in Western Europe. It must be remembered at the time that the communist parties were nearly half of the voting electorate in both France and Italy. and then occupied Europe in World War II. It had been basically a civil war between the communists, the Nazi occupiers, and to some extent the pro-Western, like the Maquis in France and so on. So we had, by tremendous efforts, the Marshall Plan, tremendous national efforts through NATO, we had stemmed the Soviet tide in Europe, stabilized it, and then with the tremendous national efforts, we had stabilized the situation in Korea. And so, okay, here were these very weak countries, weaker than Europe, that we had spent so much money to stabilize, spent so much effort in Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, so on. President Eisenhower considered them dominoes with, I think, much reason. Now, I know it's not fashionable today for dominoes, but at that time, wow, were so many lands going communist where our best efforts were failing. Okay, so at any rate, we did help the French in Indochina in their war. A lot of our supplies, a lot of their war from 1946 to 54, First Indochina War, the French fought with our supplies. The French tried a knockout blow in 1954, late 53, early 54. They had a base that was deliberate bait. They wanted the rats, the communist rats as they would call them, to come and take this bait. It was an isolated place, deliberately isolated, to draw the communists into a pitched conventional battle called Dien Bien Phu. And so the Viet Minh communists did take the bait, and surprise, surprise, the French did not believe the Viet Minh were capable of the logistics of heavy artillery, like to knock out the French air cover. It was, the Dien Bien Phu was air supplied. Down went Dien Bien Phu. French national will was broken. That was that for the French effort. Okay, well, we still had a very aggressive Red China, many fights like the Matsu offshore islands, Quemoy and Matsu, 1958. Cuba went communist by 1960. And so nobody really took the time to question, did we really want Vietnam? And it seemed that, at least economically, as a logistics-based communist world, ancient enemies were still united in supplying North Vietnam with this huge amount of communist military armament. And so, okay, nobody questioned it. And so we got in progressively deeper, and we didn't, do we really want to be here, or should we? Is this a fight we should walk away from? Remember the saying, pick your battles. You can't win them all, pick the ones you got to win, and fight those. So we did not, partly we ignored Sun Tzu. He was the military consultant that anyone in the Far East would consult. If they had an intellectual problem they had to solve, be it a military executive like a general, be it a business executive, or whomever. So the war was basically ours to lose, and yes, we lost. First of all, Sun Tzu he might have wrote The Art of War, but he was also very strict on two things. He was a peacenik. If it was a wasteful war, don't fight the war. It ruins you financially, and so yes, he was a fiscal conservative as well. Sun Tzu was. Okay, so what were some of the intellectual mistakes we made there? Mental mistakes. Sun Tzu's idea was you win a battle not by fighting, but by outwitting the enemy. That is, the one you're against makes bigger mental mistakes. Just think of how mental mistakes hurt football. Okay, so what are some of the mistakes? We had a corrupt ally in South Vietnam. They weren't anti-corruption. Basically, the less corrupt you are, the better you are able to perform athletically, etc. Another one, we were totally outmaneuvered in intelligence. We were building army bases on top of secret communist bases. Third, troglodytes. We failed, even though we had ample opportunity to study the troglodyte or caveman strategy. There's at least 3 campaigns in World War II where we fought very bitter, protracted battles against cave-hiding Japanese. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Peleliu. All were very nasty, very costly in terms of time and human life. Strategically, we let ourselves be manipulated in terms of especially the Dien Bien Phu. Now both the Russians, when they were probing the Japanese psyche during World War II, and we were haunted by the ghost of Dien Bien Phu, isolated base. The communists knew this, General Von Jap knew this, and so Khe-Sanh was the bait. This was the isolated base, and there was like an 80 or 90 day very brutal battle there. Okay, we refused a British offer of aid expertise. They won their jungle battle in Malaya just a few years before. Communists had tried taking over the Malaya Peninsula 1945 to 1957. You can Google it, it's called the Malay Emergency. And basically the British blockaded the whole island, the whole peninsula. Nothing could get in and out. Basically, the classic plastic over the head, and the communist beast, even though many nasty writhings, was swinging. We failed utterly to seal off enemy supply lines, be it Ho Chi Minh Trail. I'm understanding that there was a great deal of communist war material shipped by boats, coastal sampans and all that down the coast of Vietnam. We didn't strangle them. We also failed effectively to keep the communists out of Cambodia and Laos. Another one, we opted for an attrition strategy per General Westmoreland. The Germans had tried it at Verdun, one of the nastiest battles of World War I, and it failed. Germans lost equally to the French, and Germans were trying to believe the French were white. Without thinking, we allowed ourselves to slip into the straitjacket, mental shoes of the French colonialists. Now what I mean here, think a minute about stories from the Bible and the Samaritans, okay? Divide and rule. This was a thing used by the Assyrians, used by the Romans, used by the French, and many of us are familiar with the biblical stories of how the Israelites hated Samaritans. Well, how did they get there? Thanks to the Assyrians, somewhere around 720, 730 BC, the Samaritans were put right in the middle of the two Israeli bases of Galilee and Judea. And the Israelis were so bad quarreling with the Samaritans, who was going to worry about either a small garrison of Assyrians or, fast forward 600 years, a small garrison of Romans. You want to run a colony on the cheap, that's how you do it. You find a despised minority, put them in power, but the only way that they can, and they'll do the administrative dirty work for you, but they still need that small cadre of expert garrison to make the whole thing hang together. So China during this time, we were afraid of China from, another ghost of the past, mental ghost. Korea, we had, thought we were winning in Korea, and then came the Chinese attacks of October 1950. Well, the Chinese had convulsed itself in the Great Cultural Revolution. China was a mess, virtual civil war. We never took advantage. Okay. So these are some of the things being thought of, and these are some of the threads, and many things to go still, but I think I can make a very clean and understandable exposition of it all, especially since we're repeating many of the mistakes today.
Thank you very much. Bill is available for breakfast or lunch if you want to ever get together with him and hash out politics. He has a memory of historical events which is unbelievable. And I thank you for sharing some of those tonight, Bill. Joyce has been a member of the Writers Club for 10 years or so. It's been a long time. She's got things published in anthologies, and she'll be our next speaker tonight. Please welcome Joyce.
The good thing is that Ruth and I actually are about the same height, so we don't have to do anything. I thought I'd bring a little time period appropriate story here. Being that it's almost Halloween, and we're in a very historic building. So this one's called Sunset Cowboy. When they make a Western, why do they have a cowboy riding off into the sunset as an ending, the old man said. I only ever heard of one cowboy that rode off into the sunset, and he was never heard from again. Of course, you don't want to hear old-timey stories from an old coot like me. His long-haired grandson shrugged. Why not? Mom says we can't discuss politics or religion. Yeah, that does leave old stories in the weather, and the first is more interesting than the last. The old man leaned back in his wheelchair. He left the ranch before supper. Said he had to catch the outgoing train in town by sundown, but we all knew that was a lie. How did you know that? Boy, you don't know about trains. Sundown ain't train time. Trains run on time. He laughed. They were the only thing a cowboy needed to watch for. No train ever scheduled for sundown unless it was... The old man's voice trailed off. Unless it was what, Grandpa? The old man's eyes stared into the distance. Shut that door, boy. Your mom would send me to the county home for telling you spook tales like this one. Ain't but one train used sunset as a starting time, and now that I think on it, he might have been bad enough to be on it. That's why he was leaving, because old boss Mackenzie didn't approve of necktie parties, so he went for the sheriff. He looked at his grandson, a tall boy that was so much a younger version of himself. I reckon you don't know what a necktie party was, do you? The boy shook his head. A hanging. See, Widow Custis had been found dead, and everyone thought that old Bob must have done it. He was the one that rode off into the sunset. Of course, I know he didn't have nothing to do with her murder, but that don't really matter. I don't understand. Why did everyone think he killed her? Were there witnesses? The old man shook his head. Nah, but he was sweeting her. Been calling on her real regular. I never knew she wasn't going to marry nohow. And it wouldn't have been his first murder. He would have hung for killing Bobby Mack. But 4 of the 5 witnesses disappeared. And the 5th was old Eagle Eyes, and no way was the law going to let the word of an Indian hang a white man. What does that have to do with what train he was on? You ain't heard of it then. The old man nodded. It figures no one would still sing that song. What song, Grandpa? It's called The Hellbound Train. I got all the words memorized still. It don't do me no good. His gnarled arthritic hands waved to the dusty guitar in the corner. Spot a gambler. Won a game of cards with the devil himself. The boy laughed a little. I wouldn't think the devil could lose a game of cards. The old man grinned. I think he done it on purpose. The man won a watch, and the devil said who he was and told the man to watch and stop time. Cool, the boy said. Yeah, but he didn't use it till after he died. The chorus said that. That's why he's the conductor on the hellbound train. You don't believe that, do you? Listen to the train. Listen to the sound of a train whistle sometime close to midnight. Maybe you'll hear it. Hear it shifting to the wailing of the damned. Grandpa, you're not making sense. He turned his head toward the window and he heard a horn honk. Johnny, your friends are here. His mother called up the stairs. The old man grabbed the boy's hand. You're going out drinking tonight, aren't you? Don't bother lying to me. I don't got much time left. I should have told the truth all those years ago about me and the widow Custis. Your mama said not to argue with religion with you, but I gotta warn you. Don't make the same mistakes I did, or you'll wind up on the same train I take tonight. Grandpa, you're crazy. He left quickly. He was drinking his 3rd beer in the bar when he heard a train whistle. Not a modern diesel, but an old-fashioned steam whistle. He glanced out the window to catch a glimpse of the old train and saw a sunset. His grandfather's words floated through his head. No train ever scheduled for sunset unless it was. Just then the jukebox began to play the old ballad, The Hellbound Train. He begged a set of car keys from a friend and raced for home. Before he could even pull in the driveway, he heard the whistle change. He swore he heard his grandfather's voice and then the screams. When his friends went looking for him and their car, they found it in front of the First Baptist Church.
Thank you, Joyce. You always are good with turning phrases and surprise endings. So to wrap it up tonight, Tom has agreed to do kind of a duet with me, although I think you might want to sit and I'll stand, I don't know.
Good, bad. We're not sitting there.
Yeah, this is, there was an original member of the Writers Club the Writers Club started about 15 years ago, and there was this lovely little man named Carl Schultz who wrote this really funny poetry. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but his writing remains, and so I just wanted to do this as a kind of a tribute to him, because he really was a really special guy. He always bragged about how he was the only kid that would get kicked out of kindergarten, because he didn't speak English. And then when he went back to school, he got put into 4th grade, and then he dropped out at age 13, but ended up being an engineer. He was just a really neat man. So anyways, this is a poem that he wrote called The Sweater, and it is a duet. So
I look and view a gorgeous you in your lovely new wool sweater. The face is fine in every line, but the profile is even better. My mind in flight suggests there might be an underlying reason. This swell of pride attempts to hide beneath this garment of the season. I'm tempted then, I don't know when, to find the sources of such wonder. To know for sure the truth so pure that lies there not far under.
gaze on, be free to look and see, but I would soon despise anyone, if even in fun, pull the wool up over my eyes.
Relax, my dear, there's naught to fear. I found the answer to my story. Those heavy socks you always wear have gone on to greater glory.
I hope you had a wonderful time tonight. I know I did.